Hello everyone, and welcome to our next ISMP webinar on how to avoid scams. My name is Daniel Liu, and I'll be the presenter today for this webinar. To give you some background about myself, my family is from Sichuan province in China. My dad is from Chongqing and my mom is from Chengdu, and I myself grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area. For college, I went to University of California, Berkeley, and I graduated with a degree in electrical engineering and computer science. And now I work as a software engineer in a tech company in San Francisco called Splunk. And specifically, I develop software for security analysts to help them analyze and respond to security threats to their organizations. I think most of you are probably aware that for many prominent schools in the United States, like Johns Hopkins in Baltimore, they're located in high crime areas, so you need to watch out for your physical safety as a student studying at these universities. However, physical safety is not the only concern you should have when studying in America. Another concern I want to warn you about today and help you avoid is the danger of being scammed. So what is a scam? A scam is just a sort of trick that is played in order to cheat a victim out of their money, usually by getting the victim to trust the scammer enough to send them some money, and then they run off with it. Many scams are also commonly known as confidence tricks, because the scammer seeks to gain the victim's confidence in the trustworthiness of the scammer before taking advantage of that confidence and cheating them out of their money. And at this point, you might be thinking, I would never fall for something like that. I thought the same way too, but this past year, tragically, I've heard of multiple stories of international students being scammed out of the hard-earned money they need to study in the United States. And unfortunately, scams are very common in America, and some of these scams specifically target international students because of their unfamiliarity with how things work in the United States. So, as a mentor for international students, I want to do everything I can to help teach students about these scams and how to avoid them. And so we at ISMP put together this webinar, which I hope will be very helpful, either for you personally or to pass along to a friend. And so, I'll quickly go over our agenda today for the webinar. We'll focus on first, the basic structure of a scam. Second, some case studies of real scams. Third, common techniques that scammers employ. And fourth, how to protect yourself from these scams. Let's start with the structure of a scam. Most scams follow a pretty regular pattern that you can identify. First, the scammer will present themselves to the victim as a trustworthy person or organization, such as a school administrator, a professor, a boss, or the representative of a well-known company or government agency. Second, the scammer will say that they have the power to give the victim some sort of benefit, like giving them a large sum of money, promising them a job, an apartment lease, or fixing something that the victim owns. They may also claim to be able to prevent some disadvantage, such as preventing you from being deported or preventing you from being hacked. And third, the scammer will present a crisis moment in which the victim is pressured to cooperate with the scammer in a small window of opportunity, usually by sending them some money. When the victim complies, the scammer will then continue the relationship to get more money out of the victim, or they'll just disappear with the money that they have already gotten. Now that we're familiar with the basic structure of a scam, let's go over some examples of real scams to see how a real scam fits into the structure and to familiarize ourselves with scams that we may run into. I personally know people who have been the victims of some of these scams, so I really want to make sure that more students don't fall victim to them. First up is the Chinese package scam. I've actually encountered this scam myself. In this scam, a scammer will call you in Mandarin Chinese. They'll claim that you have a package waiting for you at the consulate that is connected to a criminal investigation and that you need to cooperate or else your immigration status will be at risk. Typically, they'll transfer you to a fake police investigator and ask for you to wire them money to an account in Hong Kong within some time frame to settle the case. So we can see in this scam that the way that the scammer establishes authority is through claiming to be the police. And they may try to convince you that they actually are the police by using a number or email address that looks real. The benefit that they claim to provide is to be able to settle the case with the criminal investigation and prevent you from getting into any further trouble. And the crisis moment is when they tell you that you need to wire them the money as soon as possible in order to get the case resolved. Next is the advance fee scam. In this scam, a scammer will contact you and say that you have the opportunity to make a lot of money through a business investment, the inheritance of a fortune, or something like that. They'll ask you to pay a small advance fee in order to cover some transfer costs or cover some legal fees, and then they'll run off with the money. The Nigerian prince scam, in which someone pretends to be a Nigerian prince looking for someone to help move their fortune out of Nigeria, also falls into this category. In this case, the scammer will try to gain your trust by pretending to be a reputable businessman or the inheritor of a fortune. The benefit that they claim to provide is usually just a large sum of money. And they may try to present a crisis moment by telling you to send the money as soon as possible, or else you won't be able to get your share of their fortune. Next up is the tech support scam. In this scam, a scammer will call you and say that they represent AppleCare or Microsoft Tech Support or some other reputable tech company. They'll tell you that your device has been hacked or that your account may have been compromised. And they'll aim to extort money from unsuspecting users by encouraging them to pay for technical support that is not actually required. Or they might try to sell you some software to fix your problem, which may do nothing or may be already available for free. Or they may try to convince you to allow remote control of your computer, which allows them to actually install malware or encrypt your files and hold them hostage until you pay a ransom, which is known as ransomware. In this case, the scammer claims legitimacy by pretending to be a representative of a well-known tech company. They may try to convince you that you have a problem with your device by doing something like telling you to open up your system registry and telling you that what you're seeing on there are actually errors. The benefit that they claim to provide is that they can fix your device or get rid of malware. And they may present a crisis moment by saying that unless you comply, you'll get hacked, or the malware will persist on your device, or if the scammer actually gets onto your device, they can issue you a real threat by actually installing malware on your device or encrypting your files. Lastly, I want to talk about the apartment scam. In this scam, a scammer will post an ad for an apartment somewhere, like an online board like Craigslist. They'll claim to be the landlord of an apartment building in the area, looking for tenants for one of their units in their apartment or their house. And if you contact them about renting the unit, they'll ask you to submit an application and an application fee or a deposit before showing you inside the unit. And then they'll run off with your money. Or even worse, they'll run off with your personal information, which they can use to steal your identity and open accounts under your name. In this case, the scammer claims legitimacy by pretending to be the landlord of an apartment complex or house. The benefit they offer is to rent an apartment or house to you, usually at an unusually good price. They may present a crisis moment by saying that they have lots of applicants and you need to apply in as soon as possible to secure the apartment. The effect of this pressure is amplified especially in college towns like Berkeley, where housing is in very short supply during normal times. And a note about this scam. This one can be harder to spot because a real landlord will also ask you for your personal information, and usually for an application fee. One way to make sure that you're not being scammed is to not send them money or personal information until you've actually gone with the landlord to go into the rental unit and look around before moving forward. These are only of the few of the many scams that are out there today. And here's a list of possible scams that you may encounter that you can read more about later. And if you would like to learn more, you can also follow this link to this website to learn more about these scams. Now that we've gone through a couple of case studies, I hope that you have a better idea of how these scams play out in real life. Next, I'll present some common techniques that scammers use so you can more easily identify when someone is trying to scam you. First technique is that the scammer may contact the victim with a phone number or email address that looks exactly the same as a real phone number or email address of a reputable organization. This technique is called spoofing. For example, a call may appear to come from DHL Delivery or a police station, or you might get an email that claims to be from AppleCare or the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service, which is America's agency for tax collection. Next, scammers typically request money through wire transfer. Wire transfers cannot be undone and are harder to trace than regular bank transfers, and it's almost impossible to track an international wire transfer. Next, a scammer may say that the scam needs to be kept secret. They may say that the information is highly confidential, or they may threaten consequences if anyone is told. Next, scammers may issue threats, such as saying they'll report you to law enforcement, or that you'll get in trouble with the government, or you'll get deported or sent to jail, or they may even threaten to hurt one of your loved ones. Next technique is that scammers typically prey on strong emotions like greed or insecurity about finding a job or anxiety about immigration status. Scammers may introduce multiple people in the scam to help convince the victim to trust them. They may try to use these other people in the scam to convince the victim that the scammer is trustworthy, but in reality, these people are actually cooperating with the scammer. And lastly, scammers may use publicly available personal information to convince the victim of their legitimacy, like talking to you about your physical address, your phone number, the names of your family members, or the name of your school, etc. Lastly, I want to leave you with some tips on things that you can do to prevent yourself from being scammed. First, don't assume that you are above being scammed. This is the kind of confidence that scammers prey on to cheat their victims. Next, when you think someone could be trying to scam you, you should run the details of the case by one of your trusted friends or family members, even if the scammer is telling you not to do that. It can be really crucial to have a person who cares about your well-being to provide a different point of view and help you identify a scam. Next, you should know that government agencies and companies will almost never contact you directly by phone on their own initiative. If someone suspicious contacts you and claims to represent a government entity or company, you should double check with that government entity or company through another channel, like a phone call or an email. Next, you should be very careful about giving away personally identifiable information, or PII, away by phone or email. This includes credit card numbers, bank account numbers, passport numbers, social security numbers, and even driver's license numbers. And lastly, if you think you're being scammed or you have been scammed, please report the incident to the police. Please don't be ashamed to report it, as reporting it can be a great help to prevent someone else from being scammed in the future in the same way. And that concludes my presentation on how to avoid scams while studying in the United States. I hope you found this information very helpful and you can pass it along to other international students.